Hello, and welcome to the Soldier for Christ podcast. If you are tuning in for the very first time, I am so incredibly glad you have found us. Let's start today with a quick mental check-in. I want you to picture your life right now, specifically that one thing that's been keeping you up at 2 a.m. You know the one. It's that knot in your stomach when you think about your career trajectory, or that exhausting loop of an argument you keep having with your partner. Maybe it's just this heavy, persistent fog of wondering, am I doing any of this right? What is the point of this relentless daily grind? We live in a culture that tells us the solution to every single problem is more. More hustle, more self-actualization, more control. If your life is messy, optimize your routine. If you're anxious, manifest harder. We are taught from day one that we are the CEOs of our own destiny. But let me ask you an honest question. How is that working out for you? Because if you're anything like me, treating yourself like a corporation just leads to profound burnout. It leaves you feeling isolated, like a solo pilot flying a plane in a storm with a broken dashboard. You feel entirely responsible for the outcome, but completely powerless to control the weather. What if the way out of this trap isn't about doing more, but about radically shifting your strategy? Today, we are going to look at 3 heavily loaded verses of Scripture. Now, if you didn't grow up religious, or if you've recently decided to explore what faith is all about because your current blueprint for life isn't working, these texts can sound incredibly weird, maybe even a bit aggressive. We're going to talk about denying yourself, carrying a cross, preaching to all creation, and having an invisible, loving eye tracking your movements. Sounds like a mix between a sci-fi thriller and a survival marathon, right? But once we strip away the centuries of religious dust, what we find underneath isn't a set of rigid rules to make your life more difficult. It's actually a brilliant, counterintuitive, psychological framework designed to set you entirely free. So, pour yourself a coffee, take a deep breath, and let's look at the map. To understand these texts, we have to play historical detective. We can't just read words written in ancient Hebrew or Greco-Roman Greek through our 2026 lenses and expect them to make instant sense. We have to understand the dirt, the politics, and the raw human emotion behind them. Let's start with our first text. It comes from the biography of Jesus, written by a guy named Matthew, specifically Matthew chapter 16, verse 24. It reads, "Then Jesus said to his disciples, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me.'" To a modern ear, deny yourself sounds like a miserable diet or a toxic demand to erase your personality. And take up your cross? We use that phrase today to talk about minor inconveniences. We say things like, "Oh, my daily commute is just my cross to bear." But let's pause. In the first century, under the brutal occupation of the Roman Empire, the cross wasn't a piece of jewelry. It wasn't a metaphor. It was a terrifying concrete instrument of state-sponsored terror. When people in Galilee saw a man carrying a crossbeam through the streets, it meant exactly one thing. That man's relationship with his old life was completely, utterly over. He was walking to his execution. He had zero say in his future anymore. So when Jesus tells a crowd of ordinary blue-collar workers, fishermen, tax collectors, political radicals, that following him requires carrying a cross, it was a massive, shocking PR disaster. He wasn't telling them to be a little bit nicer on weekends. He was asking them, are you willing to let your ego, your personal agendas, and your need to control your own destiny die so that a completely new kind of life can take its place? Now hold that thought, and let's leap over to our second text, found in the book of Mark, chapter 16, verse 15. He said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation." Again, let's unpack the jargon. The word gospel comes from the Greek word euangelion. In the ancient world, an euangelion wasn't a religious pamphlet. It was a royal announcement. If a new emperor ascended the throne in Rome, or if a massive war was won, heralds would run through the streets shouting, "Good news! The old regime is over. A new king is in charge, and everything is about to change." So, when this small group of ordinary, frightened disciples is told to go into all the world and announce this, they are being drafted into a cosmic movement. They aren't being told to go argue theology on street corners. They are being told to go tell everyone, from the elite Roman philosophers to the forgotten outcasts, that there is a new way to be human, and it's open to absolutely everyone. But how on earth are ordinary broken people supposed to pull that off without losing their minds? That brings us to our third piece of ancient wisdom, found way back in the Hebrew poetry of the Old Testament, in Psalms chapter 32, verse 8. The writer records this promise from God: "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." This wasn't written by someone living a comfortable, stress-free life. It's traditionally attributed to King David, a man who knew the heights of success, but also the absolute rock-bottom depths of moral failure, family betrayal, and paralyzing fear. When David writes about God's loving eye, the original Hebrew implies a gaze of deep, intimate care, not a celestial security camera waiting to catch you doing something wrong, but a loving mentor or a parent watching a toddler take their first steps. It's a promise of customized, real-time guidance. When you put these three pieces together, you get a fascinating trajectory. First, a radical letting go of your self-constructed ego. Second, stepping into a massive, purposeful mission larger than yourself. And third, navigating that mission with the absolute assurance that you are being coached and protected every single step of the way. All right, let's build a bridge from the dusty roads of first-century Judea straight to your living room, your car, or wherever you're listening to this right now. How does this ancient three-step framework solve that 2 a.m. anxiety loop we talked about earlier? Let's look at the modern problem of identity and decision-making. Right now, society tells you that you are entirely defined by your achievements, your wealth, your relationship status, and your image. We spend an incredible amount of mental energy protecting this fragile thing called the self. We think, if I don't land this promotion, if this person leaves me, or if I make the wrong choice about my future, my entire identity will crumble. This is why we get paralyzed by choices. We are terrified of making the wrong move because we think we are walking a tightrope without a net. But look at how Matthew 16 flips the script. When Jesus says to deny yourself and take up your cross, he is offering you an incredible gift, the freedom to resign as the God of your own life. Think about how much weight drops off your shoulders when you realize you don't have to maintain the illusion of having it all together. To deny yourself doesn't mean you become a doormat. It means you tell your anxious, control freak ego, "Hey, thank you for trying to protect me, but you're fired. I'm putting someone else in the driver's seat." You let your old, fragile identity die on that cross so that your true identity, as someone deeply loved and secure, can actually breathe. And once that ego dies, your worldview completely expands. That's where Mark 16 comes in. When you are trapped in anxiety, your world becomes tiny. It shrinks down to the size of your smartphone screen, your bank account, or your immediate fears. But the mandate to go into all the world snaps you out of that self-absorbed trance. It reminds you that your life is part of a much bigger, grander narrative. You aren't just here to pay bills and die. You're here to project love, justice, kindness, and hope into a world that is desperately hurting. When you shift your daily focus from "how do I protect myself" to "how can I serve and bring good news to the people around me today," your personal anxieties begin to lose their choking grip on your heart. That sounds great in theory, you may say, but I'm still terrified of making mistakes. I don't know which way to go. And that is exactly why we need Psalm 32. Look at the language there. "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go." If you are new to faith, you might think God is this distant, abstract force who hands you a thick rule book and says, "Good luck, figure it out." But this text says the exact opposite. It describes an active, conversational relationship. Imagine you're trying to navigate a dense, unfamiliar forest in the dark. You could try to rely on your own terrible sense of direction. That's the ego way. Or you could walk with a seasoned guide who has an infrared drone mapping the terrain from above, whispering through an earpiece, "Take a left here. Watch out for that root on the right." That is what counseling with a loving eye looks like. It means that as you step out in faith, trying to live out this new life, you're not guessing in the dark. You can ask for wisdom and expect to receive it through intuition, through circumstances, through the wise counsel of others, and through that quiet, still voice in your spirit. You are allowed to be a beginner. You are allowed to stumble because the eye watching you isn't looking for a reason to judge you. It's looking out for you. Now, let's get real for a minute. I don't want to give you a superficial feel-good message and send you on your way. We need to do a deep dive into the absolute hardest, most jarring part of this whole message. And let's face it, the hardest part is that word, surrender. In our modern world, surrender is a dirty word. It means defeat. It means waving the white flag. It means losing. Everything in our evolutionary biology and our social conditioning screams at us to fight, to grip tighter, to control, and to defend our turf. So when we read Matthew 16:24, that to live we have to die, to find our life we have to lose it, our brains naturally rebel. We want a faith that acts like an insurance policy. We want a God who will act as a cosmic assistant to help us achieve our goals, validate our choices, and make our self-made lives a little more comfortable. But ancient wisdom doesn't offer a cosmic assistant. It offers a king. It offers a total systemic rewrite. The most challenging truth of this Christian journey is that you cannot experience the guidance of Psalm 32 or the expansive mission of Mark 16 until you actually pick up the cross of Matthew 16. You cannot demand that God guide your steps while you refuse to let go of the steering wheel. Think about a skydiver. You can stand inside the airplane all day long, reading books about aerodynamics, studying the physics of parachutes, and intellectually believing that the parachute will save you. You can even talk enthusiastically to the other jumpers about how great skydiving is. But you will never, ever experience the exhilarating reality of flight until you actually step out of the open door and let go of the plane. For many of us, our anxiety persists because we are standing at the open door of the plane, gripping the frame with white knuckles. We are praying, God, please make me feel safe. Please give me peace. Please guide me. And God is gently saying, I am ready to catch you. I am ready to guide you. But you have to let go of the frame. You have to surrender your right to control the outcome. Surrender means looking at that situation that's keeping you awake at 2 a.m. and saying, I can't fix this on my own strength. I am willing to do things your way, even if it means letting go of my pride, even if it means admitting I was wrong, even if it means waiting in the uncertainty. It sounds terrifying. It feels like dying. But the beautiful, paradoxical secret at the heart of the Christian faith is that this death is the only doorway to actual, indestructible life. When you finally lay down your self-made weapons, you don't fall into an abyss. You fall right into the hands of a God who has his loving eye fixed directly on you. As we wrap up today's journey through the map, I want to thank you for spending this time with me. If you're at the beginning of this path, feeling uncertain or overwhelmed, please remember, it is completely okay to take baby steps. This is a relationship, not a corporate performance review. If this episode brought a little bit of clarity to your chaos today, please consider subscribing to the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing it with a friend who might need some encouragement right now. Until next time, drop the white knuckles, trust the guide, and walk in peace, and then press on and fight the good fight as a soldier for Christ.